Are you thinking about upgrading your practice management software, technology, your systems, or maybe your workflows, but you're not sure if now's the right time? In this episode, we dive into how to make that call and how to get your team genuinely excited about the change. Step inside a family-owned practice in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where Ashley Whinery, the practice manager, shares her experience leading a seasoned and older team through a full technology overhaul, from handling complex dental cases to turning around tough patient experiences. Ashley opens up about what it really takes to balance leadership, growth, and grace under pressure. And we dig into how compassion, teamwork, and the right systems can completely transform a practice, especially when burnout and outdated processes start creeping in. Ashley also walks us through their jump from Eaglesoft to Dentrix Ascend, revealing what worked, what didn't, and how the transition reshaped their daily operations for the better. So if you're debating a software switch, or looking for ways to strengthen your team culture, or you're just trying to keep your practice running smoothly through change, this conversation is packed with practical takeaways. So let's hear Ashley's playbook for leading with empathy, embracing new technology, and building a team that thrives through every challenge. Ashley, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. Before we get into your story and everything like that, can you kick things off by telling us a bit about your practice, who you're serving, and what are some of the unique things you're doing for your team and your patients?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in a small town in Wisconsin, Lake Geneva, very touristy. Although our patients are not, we do get some calls, but I come from a prosthodontic office. So we are a specialty office, family owned. The doctor's father was a dentist as well. He's since retired, but he started our practice about 40 years ago. Very close-knit group of staff. There's only 11 of us. And our median age range is 65 years and older.
Wow.
So most of our cases are complex cases, a lot of referrals coming from offices. They're patients that are kind of at the end of the road of their dental journey, things other dentists just don't know what to do with. So we kind of get the worst of the worst. So not always the happiest patients, but we try to turn that around for them and give them a better experience for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. There's a lot of things I want to ask in that. But before we dive in a little bit deeper, I want to ask you one thing specifically before we dive into the story. What's one truth that you've noticed so far about running a practice that most dentists don't want to hear, but absolutely need to?
They need to take time for themselves. So my doctor's great for it. She is one of the only specialists I know that works 5 days a week. Right now, we just got a call today actually for a patient needing some help, and she's booking into March. So as full-time as she is, like, we can only open so many hours. And I think doctors have this need and this feeling that they have to put their self aside to serve their patients. And so that has been a really big struggle of we can only do what we can do. And that's why there's multiple dentists and multiple specialties throughout the United States that maybe, we aren't the fit or that they can get help from somewhere else as well.
Was that easy at the beginning, like for a doctor to be like, hey, I'm going to have to turn some people down?
No, she hates it. To this day, she really still struggles with that. And of course, she is a mom too of 2 young kids. So it's like we're trying to get her to realize she should have that work-life balance, right? And she deserves that. But she has this guilt of they need me, right? This dentist referring them doesn't know what to do. I'm their only hope. And so we struggle every day with we're going to do our best. You are only one person. You are not a robot. You really thrive in giving individualized care, which then in turn puts you out into March. So I think that's a big one with the doctors is sometimes they don't put themselves first. And if they burn out, that burns the practice out.
Yeah, that's true. I like that. So then you as like a team member talking to other team members, what would you recommend to them to let their doctor know, like, it's okay. We don't have to see this person?
Yeah, I would say just have those open communications with your doctor. Managers do better with having that relationship with their doctor. Sometimes staff feels standoffish, right? That I can't come to you as your employee with those types of things. And I feel like a lot of doctors are receptive to that. They're very focused clinically and in the room. I'm going to be honest, a lot of doctors that I talk to, they don't love the business side of things. They don't want to push the paperwork. They don't want to do all of that. They want to do what they're good at and what they love, and that's dentistry. So sometimes we have to be open to having those tough conversations that you too matter. Your staff needs you, your family needs you, your patients need you. And if we're running you into the ground, you're going to burn out early. We're not giving the best care. It's just this big downward spiral. So somebody on the team has to be able to have that tough conversation, which isn't always easy.
What are some things that you've noticed that show like early stages of burnout?
For me personally, with this sector, you kind of know their routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see kind of how they're coming into the office. They're starting to maybe come 3 minutes later than normal, 5 minutes later than normal. They're just checking out in a sense, right? Where usually they're right on top of it and you can see it. There are times my doctor, I'll say to him like, hey, you good today? Like, how about a coffee? Or we got to remember, even though they are the doctor and the owner, they too need some, maybe it's time to vent, just as much as we deal with difficult patients, they're dealing with them too. And we so much lean on them to hear our wants and our needs and our demands that we forget they need that moment too. So there'll be times I'm like, let's take a walk right on lunch and just try to help her decompress and get back to that state of, we can do this. How can we improve this? We talk a lot about her schedule that way. How can we make it productive for you and the patient, but yet not feel burned out? So a whole nother topic of how we schedule her so that it's not a lot of heavy things on one day, because I feel like burnout is real and their backs and their necks, the whole ergonomics of the field, really.
Absolutely. Can I ask, how do you schedule them?
So with her, all of her big procedures are in the morning. So being pros, she's doing full mouth rehabs and things of that nature. So if a patient's asking me for 1:00, it's just simply, I'm sorry, she does not offer these appointments in the afternoon. We do these in the morning when doctor is fresh, her handset is on point. We don't really get pushback on that. So it's really heavy morning. And then her afternoon, we do easier things like the consultations, her denture appointments, impression appointments, things of that nature, where it's like she can still be productive and she can still make it through those cases that are very important too, but they're just a little bit of an easier pace. She can sit down, she has lab time, that type of thing.
Yeah, I like that. You know what I mean? Like get it all done in the morning.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
You're fresh, right? You've had your coffee. I don't know about anybody else, but like that 2:00 slump always hits and nobody wants to be crumb prepping at 2:00.
I know. Or like you're rushing back from lunch or something like that.
Yeah. You run behind, right? And so it's like all you think about is I have a whole nother crumb prep to come. And it's just a lot.
So that's with the patients.
Yeah.
Now, how do you protect the staff and the doctor? Meaning like you're stressing the doctor out a lot here. Right? Like another team member or something like that. How do you catch that? And then how do you approach it?
So we are a small office. So, you kind of get those relationships with them. So we kind of know these girls are telling me, I know all about their relationships and their personal, like all of those things. So usually it's pretty easy to see when one of them is having an off day or, you just know your staff. So many times I'm pulling them in and I'm like, hey, let's take a 5-minute, like what's really going on here? Let's chalk it out. How are we at? There have been times we have sent staff home and said, you're not in the headspace today. Take the rest of the day. We've got it covered here. Let's come back tomorrow and let's make it happen. But really, they are pretty good at checking things at the door. And if they need that 5 minutes, letting us know. If doctor's running behind or things like that, and her assistant struggling with that, we have a lab tech and then myself that are also cross-trained for clinical so that we can grab patients and kind of help that workload so that the assistant too doesn't feel left kind of out on that island and is able to kind of adjust as well.
Yeah.
So I know everyone says communication's key, but it's really also learning your staff. You can tell when somebody has an off day. I mean, they're like family. You're with them just as much as your family, and just kind of showing them that they care, right? So even though you're punched in, come talk to me 5 minutes about your personal, if that's what it takes to get things out and you to be okay, then that's what we do. And it seems to work well for our office. And two, I think everyone then seems to communicate, they don't get at each other because they have that openness with each other.
Can you give me an example of a common situation or problem where you had to say, like, you're not in your headspace, you need to go home?
Yeah. So a couple of years back, we had an assistant who is no longer with us. And she was a fantastic assistant. It just, things did not jive. And her and another assistant could not get along for whatever reason. There was no real way we could pinpoint what was happening. One was just annoyed by the existence of the other, and the other didn't understand why. So it was, we tried to keep them with separate doctors and all of the things. And there was one day that these two just blew up at each other. And I said, we're talking about this, because there was no reason, right?
Yeah.
So it came down to one just was like, I can't work with her. I don't like her. So it's me or her. And I'm like, that's not how this is going to work. You don't have that authority. Plus, you both have great qualities, different things. We either coexist or something's not going to happen. So the one that kind of initiated it, I just said, we're not clearly going to jive today. I don't think this is doing our patients nor our doctors any justice. You need to go home. I'm calling you at 6:00, and then we'll figure out where we go from here. So we did send her on her way, talked with her, just like we said, followed up at 6:00, hashed a lot of things out. Ended up being that it wasn't anything office related. There were some personal things that ended up coming up, and she just needed to get it out, but didn't know how. Of course, it didn't excuse the behavior at work, and we had to have that conversation too. And then they learned that they could coexist. They were never warm and fuzzy. They didn't sit at lunch together, which was okay. But it was just pulling them back into the reality of, we have a business to run. You know, we're in the medical field. You're affecting patients on top of it. It's not just, you know, yourself. That was a rough time for a while.
Yeah. Interesting. Is there anything specific then, or scripts or like strategies that you say to the team so that they can jive better together? They can think of each other more, like an event that you guys do or anything like that?
Of course, we do like our Christmas party and things like that. But being that we're such a small office and we all kind of know, you know, like one has a baby and things like that, we try to get our families together outside of work. So like the kids play and things like that. Nothing, you know, real complex, but just, again, something to kind of connect. I think when you can have that common ground, you seem to jive better at the office. Now, again, we are an office of all women, so there are a lot of emotions, right? And there are just a lot of differences of personalities that still arise, even though you do your best to make everything cohabitate very nicely. But again, it's one of those, like, look at it from their point of view. So I do talk with them a lot about, you're coming to me frustrated because you feel she did this, but did you look at it this way? Because she's seeing it from another standpoint. And sometimes that's hard to take in, like, it's my way and I want it my way, but it's not always the right way, or there are other ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's been helpful too, of, I understand you're frustrated, but let's look at it from another point of view too.
Interesting. Okay. So then let's pivot a little bit here and we'll dive back into some of the things you mentioned, like a lot of referrals and worst of the worst patients and your team as well. But if we could pivot and kind of dive a little bit deeper into the business, into the systems. How long have you been with the practice for?
6 years.
Okay, 6 years. So within the 6 years, what are some things that have changed for the good, and then some things that changed and you're like, we got to go back to what we were doing before?
Well, I'm going to add, we are what I consider a hybrid office. So we are very digital, but we still have paper charts. We back down on our paper charts. But I like to make that known because that is kind of an added step on things. So when I first started, we were in Eaglesoft, which to me is an outdated system for many reasons. So we had that, we had paper charts, and being a prosthodontic office, she's doing a lot of impressions, right? Versus digital scanning. So when I first walked in, I was definitely shell-shocked, thinking I totally just went back in time from what I was in. And then as I got going with it, I understood her reasonings for some of these things. So since I've been there, we have gotten a CBCT machine, which is helpful for surgical planning and things like that. She's got a Trio scanner. We are looking into getting some printers and millers, things like that. But big one, we've changed our software program. We've added in some other things that are automatically messaging our patients and, you know, more of the technology side of things to be able to utilize these programs that are out there. And they're so great to help us in office be able to do other tasks. So I think that's kind of been the biggest thing. We've just really kind of moved forward with more so our technology footprint and being how that can help her, again, see more patients, taking less time because she is just so backlogged. As far as what we've done where we've thought we've had to go backwards was our ordering system. We've tried a couple different versions of that, which is always a tricky one, I think, in any office, right? You either don't have enough, you have too much, and there's all these different ways out there. But we tried that tag system, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, right? And you put it on the last one and you put it in the bin and you scan it, all these great things. But what they weren't getting the concept of is when you take that last one, it means we order more, right? So then where's this whole thing of, well, where did the tag go and who was it? And so we went back to our old way of ordering, which is very old school still in my mind, of an order binder, right? We write it down and then once a week we go through that binder and order it. But it ensures so far we have not missed things. But that tag system, we laughed and we put a lot of work into that because you had to tag every item, right? And you had to have them all printed from your manufacturer. I mean, it was, in theory, it was good. So if anyone has pointers, we'd love it because that was not an easy flow for us at all.
Interesting. And so right now you're still utilizing it, or?
We are not. I have it all boxed up in a bin and I said, we're not doing that right now. We're going back to the old way of paper and pen.
Okay, that's a good lesson. So then I guess what was the moment you realized Eaglesoft was holding you back? Can you take us to the exact situation?
Oh, yes. This was a very rough one. So Eaglesoft is a server-based program, right? So we were having these issues of every Tuesday, we were religiously coming in and the Eaglesoft server wasn't connected. So we would always connect it. And then this became more frequent. And then the day came that I had to have our IT department on my computer all day, remoted in for one whole day because it kept dropping us every 3 to 5 minutes. So the only way for us to work was for me to have him on the phone in my computer. So every time that would disconnect, he could try to patch it behind the scenes. The unfortunate part to it was Patterson was unable to fix it, which being their program. So our IT people were great through it. But again, I mean, my work was very limited that day because I've got him remoted in. He needs to be, doing other things to keep it going, just so that I could keep the practice going for that day every 3 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
It was rough.
And did IT ever say like it's just your connection or anything like that? Or they pinpointed, no, this is Eaglesoft?
The Eaglesoft program, their IT department determined it was their internal Eaglesoft server, but they couldn't tell us what or why it kept doing that, which made it harder. So when we would fix it, it was like they kept saying it's a patchwork. And again, it would last 3 to 5 minutes, but then it would kick us back out. So then everyone's having to log back in and the doctors or the hygienist might be in the middle of x-rays or my insurance coordinator's in the middle of putting in a check and you just lose everything. I think everybody was ready to lose their mind that day. That was by far one of our longest days in office. It felt like,
what stood out to me about Ashley's story so far is how burnout didn't happen overnight. It started with small cracks, the little fires that wear everyone down. Systems, logins dropping, doing the same task twice because the software didn't save. And what I really admired is that her solution wasn't just, hey, let's get new software. It was get the team on board first. She didn't push change on them. She built it with them. And that's what made their switch to Dentrix Ascend actually work. Once the team was aligned, the chaos started to disappear. Eligibility checks took minutes instead of hours. Claims flagged themselves before they aged out. Digital forms synced cleanly with the chart. And the system even reminded them to collect what's owed before patients left the building. So it wasn't just a tech upgrade. It gave the entire office its rhythm back. There was less friction, fewer fires, and a doctor who could focus on dentistry instead of troubleshooting. So if you're listening and realizing your own systems might be slowing your team down, take a look at what Ashley implemented. You can check out Dentrix Ascend by going to dentrixascend.com. That's dentrixascend.com. And you can request a demo right then and there on their website. Or you can go in the show notes below and click on the first link in the show notes below, and it'll take you to the Dentrix Ascend website. And just look and see how aligning your team around the right tools can completely change the way your practice runs. Wow. Okay. And so then that was the moment where you guys were like, yeah, we got to switch to another practice management software.
Yeah. I mean, there had been talk of what could we be doing that would better serve us. That was kind of the breaking point of like, that's it. It came at a great time for us. It was just close to the Chicago midwinter meeting. So that became my number one task at Chicago Midwinter. I'm going around and I'm sitting with multiple different vendors. I want to see inside and out how their programs work, what they can offer, like what are the benefits, because I knew then we were pulling a trigger, we were pulling it quickly.
Interesting. What were some other common, I guess, like pain points or mistakes, or was that the only one that you're like, because of this, we're switching?
There were multiple. So there's a program that they have where you can kind of like scan in all of your documents, right? And your referrals or whatever you choose. It was slowly disconnecting from all of our computers. So like my computer, every time I would open that program, it would shut not just the program down, but my whole computer. That was done. So we called on it many times. It needed a very, very old version of Microsoft Word that we weren't even able to get anymore. Talking with our IT company, they were like, you can't even get that. We don't even have it sitting on a shelf somewhere that we can give them. And unfortunately, they had no timeline of if or when that would ever be fixed. An office that's fully paperless, right? Like there runs that issue of where do you store all of that? We did okay because we're that hybrid. So like we had a lot of things going into charts, but then with charts, it's like, where's the chart, right? Everybody loves that game. Is it on a doctor's desk? Is it in the insurance room? Like who has it? Because we all needed different things out of it because we couldn't just click a button and see the information. So that was a big one. That was rough. Just not having that at your fingertips. Another office calls for a referral. It's not there, things like that. It was very outdated. There were limitations within it. It wasn't progressively moving with the times. And like I said, we had gotten a CT, we had gotten a scanner, like all of these things, we were like ready to move forward. And it just felt like it was kind of holding us stagnant.
Gotcha. Interesting. So then you went to Chicago Midwinter, and that was the goal. I got to find me a new practice management software. What did you have in mind that you wanted? You're like, some fit it, some didn't, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So we kind of browsed, before going down there of like, who do we want to talk to? I'm going to be honest, there were so many, I don't even remember all of their names, but we did know we were kind of moving towards that cloud-based program just for the sake of the doctor, right? She sits on the WDA and ADA and all these things. So if she's at a meeting and, we get an emergency of hers, she'd be able to access things to kind of give us some guidance on how she wanted to go forward with it. So it was just more convenient, for her, but then also if a patient calls for with an emergency on a weekend, you just have more information at your fingertips. So doing research on that with the protection now with these big data centers and all the backups, it was like, this could be safer, right, than our typical server. So we kind of knew going into Midwinter, we were really looking towards cloud-based. The Dentrix Ascend was kind of one of our tops that we really wanted to see. We did look at Eaglesoft. I don't remember what they call it, but they have a cloud-based too. Being that our staff kind of knew the look of Eaglesoft, we were thinking maybe this would be a good transition because maybe it's the new and improved. So looked at that. There were two other real serious candidates that I sat with, but it came down to one, kind of how we were communicated at the show, right? So some of them were real quick, like, here's just like 2 seconds. This is what it is. Do you want it or not? And that to me was a turn off because I'm like, there's so much that goes into a software and it is a real big leap. Nobody wants to change softwares. That's the harsh reality of it. It's hard. So like that to me was kind of off-putting. Like if you're just kind of going to brush me up on that and like expect me to pull a big trigger like that, I just don't know if my comfort level's there. So then it came down to, I get to the Henry Schein booth and I spent, I would say 2.5 hours with them one-on-one. It was like nobody else was there. She's like, what do you want to know next? Let's look at this. Okay, here, I'll show you this. Like it was very personable. It was, what are your concerns? So that I felt heard, right? So my whole goal was I need to solve a problem. And if you're not asking me the questions, you don't even know what my problem is. So that was kind of a big selling point. So then when I left Midwinter, I came back and talked with my doctor and her significant other, who's very involved in the behind the scenes of our business. And then we sat on 2 more calls with Henry Schein for Ascend about what is the product? How does it work? And they kind of showed them to like, what are your concerns? What do you like? What do you not like? And again, just heard each one of us, like what my complaints were, where we were at, what the doctor, we see the vision, two different aspects. She's very clinical where I'm very much so admin, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, they heard everything, they answered everything, and they were very upfront and honest on things of like, this may not be exactly what you're looking for, but you have this. So the transparency was huge too with it. So after that, that's when we pulled the trigger of like, we don't even need to look at anything else. We all felt very confident with the process and just the information we were given that this was the fit for our office.
Okay. And how long have you been with Dentrix Ascend?
Since May 1st of this year.
Okay. So has that continued like the, hey, I need 2 hours kind of a thing? Or is it kind of like slowly? Because when people like sign up and then after that, it just, I got you. And then it kind of declines the customer service and everything else like that.
No, I will say the customer service has been fantastic. So we opted to not have a trainer come in office, which we were like, are we making the right choice here? But they were so thorough and fantastic. It was great. So we, purchased so many training hours. We went through our office as a whole with training. Then we had our lunch day with the trainers. And then after that, they were just there to support. So then once we got going a little bit, it was like, okay, these are the next things that we're going to learn. We didn't need them necessarily on day one, but eventually we did. So they broke it up, which meant we were able to retain the information more. And then once that was done, then we got passed to the next level, right? And they were like, okay, where are you at? Like, these are the next steps. And then we went through, and actually just last week, I got a call and he's like, I'm your new go-to is what he called himself.
Gotcha.
And he said, you tell me, how often do you want to talk to me? Do you want to talk once a week, once every other week, once a month? Where are you at? And he's like, you still have access to your trainers, but if you have questions, I can help, and I can help delegate who gets them if I don't know the answer. So I call it the hand-holding because I feel like that's literally what they've done this whole step is like, okay, we're at step A, step B, and it's never felt overwhelming, and it's never felt like we were alone once we just purchased. And that's exactly what I didn't want, was to just be like, here's a product in 5 minutes. You like it? Great. Here it is. Now go figure it out, because software is huge. So the transition, I think, that Henry Schein one has through this program is fantastic.
Nice. Awesome. So then when you first told your team you were moving to Dentrix Ascend, what was their reaction and how did you handle it?
Well, a lot of them didn't even know what Dentrix Ascend was. So they were just like, okay, what's that mean? So then we started talking, right? Like, it's a new software. My hygienist was a little thrown back. Hygiene loves repetition. I'll say that. So for her, this was scary. She's like, I can't do this. This is too much. And then we kind of talked with her. So the second day at midwinter, I took her with me to the Henry Schein booth and I said, talk through it. What are your concerns to them? What do you want to know? So they did. And then she started to feel more confident with it. So then she was on board for the transition. And the rest of them in the beginning were all like, yeah, this is great. Okay, we're going to move. And then that first week jitters happens, right? You do it. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, what did we just do? And I just simply was like, listen, guys, do you remember when we hated this and this and this and this? And they were all like, yeah. And like, okay, well, this fixes all of that, right? So we can do this. We've got it. And I think if you have a couple strong-willed ones on your team, my admin team was fantastic. 2 girls up front. They were like, you guys, we can do this. It's fine. We've got it. And then clinical kind of started to come along. And after that first week, it was like riding a bike, right? They were all fine. But yeah, at first they thought I was crazy. And they were like, okay, yeah, we'll get behind it. They had no idea what it was. And then I'm like, it's new software. And they're like, yeah, this is great. You're excited. I'm excited. And then they realized what they were excited for. And then a little bit of panic. And then we made it through.
Interesting. So if you could give us almost like a step-by-step instruction on, you're moving over to Dentrix Ascend. This is what you need to do in order to make sure your team is motivated for it, but at the same time, like on board without feeling frustrated.
I would say definitely make lists of what everybody is struggling with in your current software, not just your manager, not just your doctor, like the whole team in a whole, because they're all important for different reasons, right? Mm-hmm. They all bring something to the table somebody else doesn't. So that was huge too. We need to solve not just my problem, but we need to solve the insurance problem and the clinical, right? So if you can compile a list with your team of like, what are we struggling with now? And what do we want to improve? Then you have something to go back to. Those moments they're feeling frustrated of like, but we were also frustrated when we were dealing with this. So we can improve it just with like a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, and we can make it through. So I would say for one, do that. For two, if there's a trade show around and you have the staff there, book time with them. That was very beneficial to me. I could ask questions. I had no idea what the software did. I mean, realistically, it was a fake database of patients, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like it was my patients, but it made sense when you can see it beyond a 30-minute demo on a website. So as many of your staff or the ones that are maybe more reserved or your harder selves, get them in front of something like that. The Zoom calls are great, but nothing beat that time on the floor in the meeting. And then pump them up. So the day we did our training, it was a full day of training, 8 hours. We brought coffee and donuts. We had lunch delivered. Like we had snacks because it is a long day. You want to keep them going. So it was just like, we made it exciting, not just like you have to sit here and try to retain all of this for 8 hours and then we're going to do it tomorrow. So it was just reassuring them that we were all in it together. And then we kind of headed some things up. So like my insurance coordinator, it was like, okay, obviously this is her role, but you other girls, like I need you taking notes for her too, because things move so quickly. So just really pulling it in as a team, even if you don't understand what the insurance means, just write some notes that you think could be important so that she has that to go back on. And so that helped everyone just being together. And then everyone could kind of help each other. Hey, do you remember what they said about this? Oh, yeah. Remember we went here. They might have no idea what that insurance was, but they knew they went there because they seen it at one point. So I think that really helped, was just kind of amping them up and reminding them. Like I said, that first week, they were like, this isn't working. And what are we thinking? And why did we move? And I'm like, but remember your frustrations before. And I think it's okay to remind them of that, right? That's how we grow. And if it weren't a little bit scary, it probably isn't worth it. It's kind of like
yeah.
we got to push it a little bit because you got to grow. And if growth was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Okay, so then let's dive deep into the systems. Walk me through your patient's journey from the moment they call to the moment they leave. Where did Dentrix Ascend change the handoffs?
Oh, yeah. So when they call now, obviously we're getting emails up front, which we weren't before. So we can email that new patient paperwork off. That is being done so much quicker. You're getting stuff put back into the system right away with insurance. We're able to put the insurance in, take a look. We're out of network for every insurance company. So we're very upfront and honest with patients when they call about that. But then the next question is, do I even have coverage there? Some plans don't have out-of-network coverage. So by doing that, and with the doctor scheduling out as far as she does, it's giving time for us to then have the eligibility kind of go in and see like there is no out-of-network coverage here. So it's really streamlined that we're able to see patients that are medically compromised. So sometimes we're needing a med clearance to even know, like, you just had a hip replacement 2 weeks ago, you're telling me, like, I know you're not ready, but we're able to catch those quicker. So it was just kind of streamlining those, I don't want to say wasted appointments, right? But patients coming in as they needed to pre-med and now we can't perio chart on a new exam because they didn't pre-med, but we didn't catch it till they were in the office. So that has been huge kind of for that first part. Then we take a picture on the tablet, which has been great. The doctors have loved that, being able to see the patient, face to it. So that kind of is something new too that we've added in. And then the way they break it down, so you always know where the patient is. If they're here, if they're ready, if they're in the chair, are they coming up to be walked out? So the girls up front have their time set. So when the clinical staff puts that patient from in the chair to check out, they know they can start getting ready because that patient's coming to them and they need something. So it just kind of makes the process quicker for the patient. We're getting a little bit more in depth. We're not missing some things where you're going off of memory because the system is really kind of telling us what we need to do, which is great.
Nice. Okay. So those are all like benefits, but features from the practice management software, basically, right?
Yeah. So the digital forms is a great feature. We use that a lot. The feature of the pictures for the patients, and then the feature of moving them throughout that, I don't know what sidecar or whatever they call that, kind of knowing, because otherwise you're up there with the patient and next thing you know, they're manually walking up with a patient trying to communicate something to you. It's handwritten, versus there it's in the system. They know it's coming up. They can start looking for whatever they might need next.
Interesting. Okay.
Treatment planner too. That feature has been much quicker to treatment plan with. So patients aren't standing around as long, the way that they have it in the quick exam. And then how you can label it out in there is much, much more user friendly.
Yeah. So would you say whose role or responsibility shifted the most because of Dentrix Ascend? Was it who on your team now works a little bit smarter, harder, things like that?
I will definitely say it will be our insurance coordinator and then myself as far as the insurance goes. The one feature we have absolutely loved, not only the eligibility, we have not done the eligibility pro yet, just the regular, and it is fantastic just with what the program comes with. But the other thing is the unresolved claims. It lines it out for us every day. What claims have been rejected and come back? What claims are 30 days? We have it set at 30 days as an overdue claim. So now you're not waiting till you're running your AR report every month to go, what claims are outstanding? Where are they at? Why are they taking so long? Every day you're getting little bit by little bit, which makes it more manageable. But then it keeps those AR reports down because it's not such a heavy load of just things that are kind of out in no man's land, right? You have to dig to find them.
Oh, okay. So when it comes to that, how did billing and collections look before versus after? What reports do you now check daily or weekly that you didn't before? Besides, it's the claim one you mentioned.
Yep. So the unresolved claims, that was not a feature in the old software. So that is checked every day and worked. So the expectation is this morning there was 9 in there. So by day's end, that's at 0 because whatever that may be, maybe they paid the patient or we needed to provide more information, but it keeps the process moving. Where before you kind of had to dive into those. And sometimes if they paid the patient, those weren't being found for 30, 60, 90 days later because the insurance wasn't correlating with us. Well, then we weren't able to collect on that money because it still showed that their balance was 0. So that was a big one. And the recare, actually, the way that they have the recare broke up on your daily kind of tasks home view, much more user friendly, much easier when you're trying to fill a last minute spot versus just kind of everyone trying to remember who canceled an appointment or you got a quick fill list, which can be a hodgepodge, right? Yeah. They're there for whatever reason. But that recare list, it doesn't lie. You know exactly what's in there. It's very plain as day of who's due, when they're due. So that report is something now we utilize more than we ever did.
Okay. So then with that being said, because I'm assuming that's a report you used to not ignore before, but that's something you didn't track as often, but now you do, right? And decisions have changed because of that.
Yeah.
What system do you think was fine before viewing the reports or before Ascend? And now you realize, man, it's been broken this whole time, or we could have been doing way better with this situation.
Yeah, to be honest, it was our walkout process. So what we had found in the old software, you could kind of, I don't want to use the word override, right? But I could override doing something. I could just put in a payment and that's it, let them go. Where this system, it's broke down where the girls have to schedule a recare if it's not already scheduled. If they don't schedule it, they cannot do anything further. A big pop-up comes up and says, why did you not do this? And they have to give me a reason why they did not do this. They didn't ask the patient. Maybe it's something else, right? Maybe it's a patient that we're transitioning into denture, so they're probably not going to need a cleaning. Then we have to change their recare, but they can't move beyond that. Then if they don't collect the copay, why didn't you collect the copay? Again, this alert comes up. Where before it was just you could tell me you asked for money and maybe they forgot a checkbook or whatever it is, but now you can't get past those steps. So hygiene is staying full. The AR is down. All of these things because you literally have to go from step A to B to C. And if you don't do it, that system is putting up an alert saying, why are you not doing it? So that has changed drastically, which also now our schedules have changed. Right. So we have a second provider in the office who is a general dentist, and her schedule now is busier than it ever has been because we're able to run these reports too that they're a lot more user friendly to be able to say, okay, she had a cancellation here. who has outstanding treatment, or this patient checking out now needs this appointment. Well, I just had something open in 2 days, and you have to give those reasons. So we've definitely seen change for the better with that. But before, I would have never thought our walkout had been broken. It was the assistant or the doctor bring the patient up. They tell you what they did. You put it in the system and off you go. And a lot of times we found they weren't checking for hygiene to be scheduled. They weren't collecting money because sometimes patients not always the friendliest. So it's just easier to let them go and bill them, right?
Yeah.
Where now they have to do their steps.
Interesting. So with this switch that you've done, could you, if you can even give us like the specifics, that would be the best, but like how much money or like your production or collections, has it increased a lot mainly because of this? If you can say it's because of this, like because of Dentrix Ascend, do you know how much?
100%. So when we talked about kind of all the different things, so eligibility, right? We were averaging out about an hour a day that we were having to see if patients were eligible. So in a week's time, that's, 5 hours at minimum a week that I gained time there. So when you put that in perspective of, okay, that's almost a full day of a staff member. So like we did kind of work that one out of, now I have 5 hours for my insurance coordinator that can be putting in payments or working on resolved claims, right? So those are getting done quicker, which in turn is turning things around. So they have some great graphs again on that daily kind of login, and ours are all under 9%, like 9 and 10%. So our turnaround time is much, much quicker. We don't have things sitting in that 90-day range anymore. And if we are, it's very minimal things. There's some couple insurance out there that are great that aren't paying, for 600 in some days or whatever those are. But, you get those few random ones. But in a whole, our claims aren't sitting out there like they were. As far as the AR goes, huge difference because we can send electronically now, which is great. So it sends them an email or a text, depending on what they have listed, and they can click it and they can put their payment in and it comes right back into the system. And for patients, that has been huge because they see it and they do it right away. Versus getting it in the mail, they set it on the counter, they forget about me till the next month, I send it again. And this becomes habitual until I send a letter saying, listen, you're ignoring me. You're going to be going to collections, right? And then everyone hustles to pay. But when I send statements out now, within an hour, we've probably got 24 to 36 payments coming in already, where in turn, you're waiting on those. And some of those were accounts that we struggled to collect on before. They were balances pulled forward from our old system. And it just so happened that that's the way of the world now. It's in your face. You get an email, just get it done and over with. And so, off the top of my head, I don't have exact numbers, but to say it's definitely increased and pretty drastically is for sure. You definitely can see that change. And patients, again, back to the beginning, our patient base is 65 and older. So you would be surprised. A lot of people are like, well, they're not very tech savvy. They are tech savvy. Let me tell you, they all sit out there and they figure out their phones. They can run our tablet. But there are some that tell me, I don't want that. And that's okay. We have come up with an option that their billing status goes to mail at the end. So I run all the electronic ones and then I run a batch of those and they still get a printed one in the mail. They can still write their check or however they want to do it. So we still offer it, but it's definitely made a huge difference for the text and the email for sure.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So then for an office still on either Eaglesoft or something similar, what's the first red flag they should look for that says it's time to move on?
When they're not putting money into their own product. So when I started with the company 6 years ago, Eaglesoft looked the exact same the day we left it. There were no upgrades to it. Anytime you called for IT support and you asked, this, and whether you're getting to the wrong people or not, I don't know, but there was never real big talk of what is coming or this is exciting and new, or we know that's a problem, we're working on it. And now with the ways of just everything, technology and the way things are going, we're all to that part of, like you said, we need to work smarter, not harder. And this has definitely helped. We're a small office, 11 employees. Every minute, every hour we have in that office makes a difference. So if we're spending 5 hours verifying patients, well, we could be putting in payments and bringing money back into the building. It makes sense, right? So it's like we needed something that could help work for us, but really didn't change anything besides the fact we were getting a whole lot more. Early on in our times of changing out, we listed out everything we were doing down to like, okay, we pay this for our statements. We pay this for our clearinghouse. We pay, all of these programs we were using. And by changing over to Dentrix Ascend, we were able to put 5 programs into one, which again, you now have one IT department, right? Like you have one company that's sourcing everything. It just made it flawless. The transition was easier, being that you didn't have all these different things we were trying to learn. We could just simply be in one.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley, for diving deep into this, letting us know a little bit more about your workflow throughout that process. Now, these next questions are just a few questions to get to know Ashley a little bit more. So, reality show twist. If your business life was a reality show, what would be the most dramatic episode and who would be the fan favorite character?
Ooh, okay, this is a fun one. Okay, so do you mean dramatic like suspense dramatic or like drama in the office dramatic? Or either? Okay, so we're in the middle of a transition. Okay, so I'm going to lay this out a little bit for you. So I'm actually up at the front desk, working front desk. We had a change up there. And we had a patient come in, and pre the patient coming in, we have a staff member who thinks we are built on an Indian burial ground. And she refuses to be in her office alone because she thinks that these Indians will be there and they talk to her. Okay. So there was this joke. We got these little Indian figures. And one day before she came, I just started putting them like right throughout the office. And then I would move them. And she couldn't figure this out for months. It was a lot of fun. So fast forward, I get a patient's checking out. We're good. She leaves the building. She comes back to me and she's like, there's an action figure out on your sidewalk. And I'm like, okay, perfect. I'll be right out. Thinking one of our little Indians had escaped, right? Somebody took it out. And she's like, no, it's moving. And I'm like, okay, sure. Again, we're transitioning with a new staff member. So I'm like piled deep and I'm like, all right, I'm coming. So I'm looking, I follow her outside to our sidewalk. And she's like, right here. And she's pointing and she's like, do you see it? It's right there. Let me also add, at this point, I'm 8 months pregnant, right? So I'm trying to bend down to see this. And it's a stick just from the tree above. And she's trying to tell me that it's moving and it's alive. And I'm like, well, that's actually a stick. So turn of events, we're going to be okay. And she was very traumatized by that. So like we come across a lot of things like that. So if a reality show followed us, they would have a lot of fun.
That's hilarious.
But I think our fan favorite would probably be Katie. She is one of our front desk coordinators. She jokes with all the patients. She is so bubbly and funny. That girl does not have a bad day. So I think she would be the fan favorite. I think everyone would just fall in love with her. She's been a great asset to her team. She's new. Yeah. So
nice. Awesome. That's hilarious, the story. So number 2. The dinner table. You're hosting a dinner with 3 people who left scathing, horrible reviews of your practice. What's the first thing you'd say to break the ice?
We're a little dramatic, aren't we? I think that's what I would say. Yeah. I can picture in my head who those top 3 are. And they were very interesting, all very different reasons that they left those reviews. But that would be my thing is, a little dramatic, are we?
All right. I like it. And then finally, time travel. If you could go back in time and give your starting out self one piece of advice, but it cannot be business related, what would it be?
I would say just go for it. Whether it's personal, like anything of that nature, I would say you only live one life, right? So don't second guess yourself. Just live in the moment, have fun. Family comes first. I know in business, we all kind of can see the gray area there because work and everything comes first, but just go for it. What do you have to lose? There's a lot of people out there, things like this. I mean, I think one of the first things I said to you was dental's fun. And give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? Maybe you fail and you're going to learn something, but people, I feel like now have this big presence of social media and they've got to look just this and that. And they lose the sense of themselves and they lose the sense of just being able to be them because they're too worried about what everybody's seeing. So just go for it. Have fun.
Nice. Awesome, Ashley. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Ashley Whinery, or our office website too, Lux White Dental Group. We're in Lake Geneva. I said small town, but we'd love to chat with some of you.
Awesome. So that's going to be in the show notes below. And Ashley, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you.
Such a great episode. And what stuck with me from Ashley's story wasn't just the switch, it was what changed after. Payments showing up within the hour, recare never slipping through the cracks, mornings set aside for the heavy cases, and a calmer team because their system caught the little mistakes before they became big ones. So here's a challenge for you tomorrow. Pick one bottleneck that's quietly draining your team's time and energy. Maybe it's insurance claims that keep slipping, double entry between programs, or checkout steps that get skipped. Now ask yourself, what if my software handled that automatically? That's exactly what Dentrix Ascend was built to do. Remove those daily friction points so your team can focus on what actually matters, your patients. So if you're ready to see how that looks in real life, check out the link in the show notes and take a look at Dentrix Ascend. Go in the show notes below, click on the first link in the show notes below, and it's going to take you to dentrixascend.com and just request a demo. That's dentrixascend.com and request a free demo right there. It's 30 minutes or less, and you'll realize how incredible it is for your practice. Because the fastest way to grow isn't doing more, it's eliminating what slows you down. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.